Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Heavily Contested Hoops podcast. My name is Peyton Mitchell, and I'm going to give you my thoughts on yesterday's games and some new storylines that I've come up with. So let's go ahead and get right into it. As we all know, my pick to win the national championship this year is Duke, and thank goodness they locked in yesterday. They held TCU to 33% shooting and just 29% from three. That's exactly what I want to see from teams that I'm looking to have go far and ultimately end up winning the national championship, because the way they allowed Siena to stay with them and hang around really showed that that team thought it was going to be a cakewalk. And it was not. It's never going to be a cakewalk in March Madness. And they really showed up against TCU and locked down on defense. Cam Boozer had 19 points and 11 rebounds and shot 7 for 10 from the field. This has been him all year. There's nothing new with what he did in this game or from the last game. I feel like they finally got their feet under them after them being mostly freshmen into this tournament and got their feet wet with a solid Siena team that came to win that game. So we've seen the same thing from Cam Boozer all year, but I feel like this is where I want to see Isaiah Evans lock in more and really start knocking down shots, because if he begins to shoot better from the three-point line, this team is 100% unstoppable. Yesterday, he shot 2 for 8 from three and it's not been his days or his tournament yet from the three-point line, but it only takes one game to get going. And I am fully expecting that to happen. And that's why I think they are going to be in the national championship, especially if he gets going. I'm also going to say welcome back to Pat Ngangba. It was not a great game from him. He only played 13 minutes coming off that foot injury. He had 4 assists, 4 fouls, 4 turnovers. So, I mean, it wasn't just the greatest, and he had 4 points. It wasn't the greatest comeback that he wanted, but also if Duke, the rest of that Duke squad gets a tune-up game, Pat Ngangba's going to need it too after not playing for the extended amount of weeks that he did not. But their next one's not going to be any easier than the last one. They got St. John's or Kansas next weekend. I feel like Kansas will be moving on in this one. So they really match up. They get to play Darren Peterson. That's going to be, right now, you probably got Darren Peterson and Cam Boozer as your number 1 and number 2 overall picks. That would be a great matchup to see, especially if Peterson plays. I see no way that he does not play, especially in the tournament. This is a big game. This is a big game, and it's exactly what he's here to play. I don't know why he was not playing during the season. I guess for whatever cramps he was having, it was too bad for him to be out there and continue to play. But yeah, Duke really surprised me, or not surprised me. I knew that's what Duke was going to do. I'm just glad that they finally locked in and figured it out on the offensive and defensive end and played like they really had some passion. So now, let's go ahead and move on to Michigan State versus Louisville. Oh my goodness, this was a great game to start off the day, or second game of the day, because Michigan absolutely killed St. Louis early. But the game 2 of the day, Jeremy Fears Jr. is a guy that has no fear. He was 3 for 13 from the field, which is not the greatest offensive day for him, but he had 16 assists yesterday. That was a Michigan State tournament record for a single game assist in all time at Michigan State. And he had 11 in the game before. And then, so that's 27 assists in the last 2 games in the NCAA tournament. He has had 3 games in a row now with double digits assists. He had 13 in their loss in the Big Ten tournament game. So this is a guy that is really sharing the ball and finding his open teammates. And there's one guy in particular that is benefiting off of these assists. Cohen Carr is an absolute great player. He is one guy that you have to watch out for, because he is able to jump out of the gym and knock down shots with, it's just insane. He had 21 points and 10 rebounds yesterday. And when they said there's going to be flying cars in 2026, they did not mean Cohen Carr, the big 55. He is just an absolute specimen of an athlete. And it really shows that this Michigan State squad can make damage in the next round, whether they play the winner of UConn or UCLA. But now I want to move over and talk about Ryan Conwell real quick. He had 21 points and did everything he could in this game. This was this came down to be his team in the absence of Michael Brown Jr. And Ryan Conwell really put on a show and really showed that he did everything he possibly could to help them move on. But I think that the absence of Michael Brown Jr. is what allowed Michigan State to be over the hump because Louisville played good and didn't have as many turnovers as they did against USF, which was what I thought that if they wanted to beat Michigan State, they would have to do that. They just didn't knock down threes at the timely time that they needed to. But like I said, Michigan State plays the winner of UCLA and UConn, and that's going to be a pretty one. That's going to be a fun game to watch. No matter who wins the matchup, and Louisville sees or Michigan State sees in the next round. Let's go ahead and talk about the upset of the day and what everyone is calling Cinderella. Number 11, Texas, making it from the first four to the Sweet 16 after an upset win over Gonzaga yesterday. Now, are they Cinderella? In my opinion, yes, they will be the Cinderella team this year because they made it from the first four as one of the last teams in to now they are playing in the second weekend, which nobody thought happened. But this is what I felt has played into Texas's hands based off of their matchups. The tournament's all about matchups. Like High Point beat Wisconsin, all about matchup. Texas had to play a BYU squad who did not have Richie Saunders, and then they had to play a Gonzaga squad who did not have Braden Huff, who averages 17.8 points per game and 6 rebounds this year. And then he has been absent, which has really taken Gonzaga a step back. And that is the reason I feel like this game allowed Texas to stay in the fight and ultimately come out with the win. Because at the point of saying if Braden Huff was there, Graham Ike was unstoppable. He has had a great career, started at Wyoming, went to Gonzaga the past 3 years. He had 19.9 points per game this year. And last night he had 25 points to end his night. And that was just a great showing from Graham Ike. I just feel like if Braden Huff was playing for this team yesterday, there's a different outcome in the game. But I'm going to go ahead and talk about this clutch shot down the stretch when Texas was up 1. The clutch shot that Texas let's back up a second. Camden Hyde hit a clutch shot when they were up 1 with 14 seconds left. This fadeaway shot in the corner was absolutely one of the toughest shots you're going to see. Texas has now had 3 tough shots that come to mind. The corner shot and then the 2 fadeaway jumpers in the first 4 games against NC State. They're knocking down shots at the right time, and that is also a big part that is helping them move on. They don't hit that shot. Gonzaga gets the ball with 14 seconds left, 14 seconds left, and it's not out of hand. Like the game is not out of hand. They have a chance to win it. But since they hit a fadeaway corner 3, that allowed Texas to pull away, and ultimately Texas got a steal in the next possession, and they finished it off with a dunk in style. Now they're going to play the winner of Miami Purdue. Purdue, this game did just finish up. As we've seen in the past, Purdue is a very beatable team, but right now they're playing their best basketball. They were AP number 1 to begin the year. Now they're playing again. They just beat a really, really good Miami squad. But hey, anything with Purdue in March is unexpected. I took them in my survivor pool to win today, and they did, so I don't have to worry about them losing in an upcoming round. But when we talk about Gonzaga, is this the end for Mark Few? In my opinion, this is not the end. There's no way you can fire Mark Few. Absolutely not. He has had Gonzaga has had 28 straight NCAA tournament appearances, and Mark Few has had 26. They have won 28 games in the last 10 years. That is the most by any school in the country over the last 10 years of tournament game wins. He is the winningest active coach with 741 wins and 152 losses. And he has had 2 championship appearances through 2017 and 2021. Now, when you say, has he got the job done? No. But are we really expecting Gonzaga to get the job done in this time frame anyway? Gonzaga, playing out of the West Coast Conference, does not have all the stuff that they need to. Yes, they're always talked about in the conversation of being one of the better teams, but I feel like there's still a little gap that Gonzaga has not closed yet. And that's why they have not won that national championship. But there's no reason Mark Few should be fired. He's one of the best college coaches in college basketball, if not the best active coach right now in college basketball. Now let's move on to Nebraska versus Vanderbilt. This was the game of the day. Nebraska wins it 74-72 at the end. And oh my gosh, we almost had the greatest moment in NCAA March Madness history. Tyler Tanner, 2 seconds left, and he hits every part of the rim. There's not a worse feeling than hitting every part of the rim and that shot not going down. You got to feel for Tyler Tanner in that moment. That's a shot that you dream of, and for it to not fall by the slightest of margins is absolutely just the worst feeling that you could possibly have. And I had them to beat Florida in the next round in the Sweet 16 because they play Florida, the winner of Florida and Iowa. I had this happening. That was my upset. That was really going to help me win my brackets. So I'm going to need a little bit of help coming out. But oh my gosh, Tyler Tanner, that shot was right there. It gives me flashbacks of the Gordon Hayward shot. And that was that just was flashbacks. And that was one of the worst nights of my life. I cried that night and I was only 4. And that was when my hatred of Duke fully came on to the display. But that shot, you get moments. That's still going to be a shot that's remembered for the rest of the time. But Tyler Tanner, you still played absolutely amazing. 27 points. You took over in the second half from a game that we thought was going to completely go Nebraska's way. And Price Stanford, who had 15 points, 3 for 6 from the field, did the same thing against Troy in the first round. He is on a heater right now. He's really living for the moment. And that's what we're seeing from this Nebraska squad that I thought was not going to be as good in this tournament. They were up 7 early, and I thought it was going to look that way. But Vanderbilt really came back and showed us this game is not over, because that shot that Tyler Tanner hit or missed let me restart. This was Nebraska's game to begin with. But in the second half, everything flipped when Tyler Tanner hit that 27. Let me restart this one again. Let me get my thoughts correct and tell you. This was a game that Nebraska had in hand in the first half. The Vanderbilt could never get it within 5, and then everything changed in the second half when Tyler Tanner took over with 27 points. And the second half was his game. For it to not end the way on an absolute heartbreaker that it did, you got to feel for the kid. But that was automatically one of a March Madness instant classics. And it just gives you flashbacks of that Gordon Hayward shot. And you got to think, what if the ball wasn't pumped up just a little bit, was pumped up just a little bit less? Now let's move on to this Arkansas High Point game. This was a close one. This was a very, very close game. It was close all game. Darius Acuff Jr., you are the best point guard in the country and best point guard John Calipari's ever had. 36 points, 6 assists. I don't know why people are not talking about this man like he's not one of the best players in the country. He took over at the end of that game. High Point lived, and they died by the 3. They shot 10 for 38, and after they were 9 for 16 they were. High Point lived and died by the 3 last game, 10 for 38, and it was just not going to work for. It was not going to work for them, especially when Chase Johnson missed 2 tough ones that hit every single part of the rim down the stretch, and that ended up allowing Darius Acuff Jr. to get into his rhythm and take over at the end of the game and pull away. Now, they play the winner of the Arizona-Utah State game, and boy, this is where I'm calling my upset for Arkansas. If Utah State doesn't pull it off today over Arizona, which is going to be a great game, a very physical game inside, then I got Arkansas taking on Arizona, and this is going to be your upset, and this is what's going to help me win my bracket pools, where this is the game I chose to set myself apart from everybody else. So now, let's have the conversation. Is Cinderella dead? Absolutely not. The fact that people think Cinderella is dead shows that the game is changing in a way that we're not accustomed to. in my opinion, teams seeded 4 through 11 are going to be the people that are going to make your runs. With NIL being such a divider across the sport, your 12 to 16 teams making runs is just not going to happen. This is the first time in the last 2 years that we've not had a 13 through a 16 seed team move on. Now, and the other part with that is no one's wanting to be labeled Cinderella. It's High Point. They said, we're not a Cinderella. Miami said, we're not a Cinderella. In 2022, St. Peter said they didn't want to be Cinderella. So how are we going to have Cinderella when nobody wants to be Cinderella? But if you don't want to be Cinderella, then don't be Cinderella and just don't move on. Don't embrace that added motivation that you have. And I mean, Mark Few said it too. Texas isn't a Cinderella. Yes, they are. They will be a Cinderella if they make it to the Elite Eight. If you don't want to say they're already a Cinderella for playing in the first four, being one of the last teams in and getting in. Yes, they had a few losses at the throughout the year in the SEC in a tough SEC conference, but they can still be Cinderella because nobody expected them to be where they are at this point. So in that case, Cinderella is not dead. There's just a new way of thinking of who Cinderella is. You also got to look at it as you don't find Cinderella, Cinderella finds you. Now, let's move on to my games to watch. Today, number 5, St. John's in Kansas. St. John's is a -3.5 point favorite. I feel like this is a St. John's team that was disrespected with this tournament seeding at number 5 after winning the Big East regular season and Big East Conference tournament. Being -3.5 to Kansas is a big deal, but I'm going to take Darren Peterson. I feel like he plays and fully takes over this game. And if he doesn't, this might be a Kansas squad that played better without him, to be honest. Mevin Council Jr. This is a squad that is able to play at a very high level without their best player in Darren Peterson. But I feel like Darren Peterson, he's going to shut everybody up today and really put them over the hump, and just going to be too much for St. John's. We got another 5-4 matchup on the list here with Texas Tech and Alabama. This is going to be the game of the day for sure. Texas Tech without JT Toppin and Alabama without Aiden Holloway. Texas Tech's a -1.5 point favorite. The Alabama really showed that they are able to still have their offensive firepower with LeBaron Philon Jr. in that Hofstra game, but I feel like that's going to be too much when the loss of Aiden Holloway is really going to catch up to him in this round, because Texas Tech has still been able to prove that they can win games without JT Toppin. And that's where I feel like Texas Tech's going to get over the hump and ultimately knock off Alabama in this one. Now, number 6 versus Tennessee, that's going to be a game that I feel like Tennessee is disrespected to only be a -1.5 point favorite. I feel like Virginia, this is a solid Virginia squad, but I don't think they have all the pieces to compete with Tennessee with Jacoby Gillespie, Nate Ament, and what's the other guy's name? Bishop Boswell. That's just a team. That team's loaded, and Peter Carey or whatever the Carey guy's name is, and that's just going to be a squad. They're going to be too physical for Virginia, and I don't think they're going to pull it off. That's a very tough second round matchup to draw in that case. Now, number 7 Kentucky versus number 2 Iowa State. This is going to be a good one too. Otega Oweh. You saw how they survived against Santa Clara. That's going to be a very impressive matchup with Iowa State being a -4.5 point favorite. I'm scared about their guard that twisted his ankle on the layup. See how much that affects the outcome of this game. But that's another one to watch. I feel like Iowa State is going to still come away with this one and move on to the next round to play Tennessee. And the game of the day, number 2 UConn versus number 7 UCLA. This is a battle of the biggest complainers in basketball. There's no way you can tell me that Mick Cronin and Dan Hurley are not going to be fiery this whole game. This is going to be a fun one to watch to end the night. Number 2 UConn versus number 7 UCLA. There's no reason that you should not be tuning into this one. But I feel like UConn's going to end up coming away with this because Mick Cronin is going to end up, at the end of the day, complaining that they had to play a late game on the East Coast when they're a team from the West Coast, even though they play in the Big Ten, and he complained about it all year. Mick Cronin, one of the biggest crybabies in basketball, and Dan Hurley right there with them. But you got to love it because they show passion, and it's exactly what you want to see. Now I'm gonna give you my bracket update. I'm still in first. We're gonna need some upsets to happen to really let me have those max points stay above everybody else's. I think max points wise, I'm in second in my biggest bracket pool. So I really need Arizona to lose next round to Arkansas. And I feel like that'll ultimately seal the deal. With an Arizona loss, will seal the deal for me. And they can lose today, and I would be just as happy because then I don't have to worry about Arkansas playing Arizona, and then Arizona will end up losing like to everyone else in the bracket. Pretty much picked Arizona, so if they lose and my team wins that way, I feel like I'll have the ultimate say and what happens, especially when the fate of my bracket is going to be all in Duke's hands after Vanderbilt lost that. I just need Houston to knock off Florida at some point, and we'll easily walk away with the win in every single bracket. But that does it for this episode of the Heavily Contested Hoops podcast. I'm Peyton Mitchell. Continue to tune in on TikTok, Spotify, and YouTube, and have a great day.